Yo guys, I got a spark which I'm going to use to ignite the fire for a brand new episode of Schooled for Game Show, which I take for Battle Class from Skylanders Imaginators as a theme. Yo guys, I got a spark which I'm going to use to ignite the fire for a brand new episode of Schooled for Game Show, where I take the battle classes from Skylanders Imaginators as a theme and then make a whole video around it. So all of the Skylanders you see before you have one thing in common. They don't fit into one battle class, they fit into two. So, because these Skylanders have the attributes from two separate classes, I thought to make a video addressing that issue, so that I can kind of like take the Skylanders that do fit into these two battle classes and amalgamate the two battle classes into one to make Skylanders of a dual class. Now, I was kind of alluding to this concept with Chill when I made her a Sentinel, because I did mention beforehand about how she could also be a knight with her fitting for knight aesthetically due to the armor. However, she's more of a Sentinel since she has a dual-bladed weapon and she's very agile in battle even. So the very fact that she kind of gave birth to this idea of Skylanders fitting into multiple classes is the reason why she's on the portal. But now we're going to run through the other Skylanders and see what other battle classes they fit into besides the one I've put them into already. So starting off with Snapshot even, he's pretty obvious. He should be both a bowslinger and a knight, because his weapon, well, it's a bow and arrow. So that makes him a bowslinger right off the bat, but the bows he uses for this weapon is, well, a sword. And so the very fact that Snapshot combines both the weaponry of a sword and a bow and arrow makes him fitting of both these battle classes based on the weaponry he uses. And Snapshot is very innovative in the style that he does amalgamate both of these weapons, that being a sword and a bow and arrow, so it's very cool to see such an innovative Skylander blend two battle classes so well together. Regardless, moving on to High Vault, he was originally a knight because he had his suit of armor and was very noble and honorable in battle and everything. But he would also fit for Sentinel class quite well, because in his moveset he's pretty agile, and his weapon, technically speaking, is dual-sided, although he does more poking with it than he does spinning weapon. But the very fact that he grips it in the middle rather than at one end or the other is truly a Sentinel-based skill. And then we have Sprocket. Now, she's a Sentinel because she kind of wields her spanner in a similar way to High Vault, and the fact that it's towards the middle rather than one side or the other. But Sprocket does create turrets, which makes her a sorcerer as well as a Sentinel. And sure, she is the one constructing these, which construction isn't much a sorcerer skill as it is summoning. But the very fact that she uses these turrets to do her own bidding, that, my friends, is indeed the trait of a sorcerer, making her fitting of that class as well. And then we move on to Gearshift and Scorp, which are effectively in the same boat, since they are both swashbucklers, and I'm going to stick to that since they have two weapons, one in either hand, or gear, I should say, in Gearshift's case. But they also make really good quick shots because both of them utilize projectiles in some fashion, which are launched at incredibly fast rates from a distance with pinpoint accuracy, which is very much the trait of quick shots. But these aren't very abundant in their movesets, which is why they're so much more tailored towards being swashbucklers, especially with their agility and everything. But speaking of swashbucklers, Ninja Stealth Elf right there would make both a great ninja due to her moveset capabilities and her aesthetics and everything, having a ninja suit. But she'd also make a pretty good swashbuckler as well because, well, she's agile. That basically comes with being a ninja. But as you can see here, she has two knives, not one of them, and the fact that she wields two knives, one in either hand, makes her a swashbuckler, really. And she also has some huge combos, which utilize both of these weapons in great coordination with one another, which is very much the traits of a swashbuckler, so she does kind of fit into that class as well. But then we also move on to Enigma, who would be both a ninja and a smasher, because if you look at his giant weapon like right there, it's kind of axe-like, which is the traditional weapon of a smasher. And not to mention, when Enigma utilizes that weapon, it's pretty slow, but For speed that's sacrificed, Enigma makes up for with power. So the fact that his weapon is powerful and has the kind of aesthetics of a smasher weapon makes him fitting of that class as well. And then with Nightfall, she would be both a ninja and a brawler, since she does have combos up her sleeve which she uses to kind of like play around with her enemies and brawl with them, you could say. Now, these three, just like Gearshift and Scorp, all share the same dual classes because the three of them are both brawlers and smashers. Now, my justification for making Frino and Scratch smashers beforehand is because they do everything within their power to absolutely pulverize their enemies. Like, Frino starts pounding on the ground just to act more enraged and hit his enemies harder than what he would normally, you know, that kind of mindset of his, trying to pulverize enemies as hard as he can. It does indeed make him a smasher, and it's the same with Scratch. You know, she keeps herself held up high and then smashes herself back down on enemies. But at the same time, for both of them have a lot of combos up their sleeve to utilize, making them pretty great brawlers, just like Slam Bam, who does indeed have combos up his sleeve, and he even traps enemies inside of his ice cages to make combos even easier for himself. But he also does that so it's even easier for him to hit enemies and hit them hard. Slam Bam also has a kind of like pulverization in his mindset, because he wants to hit his enemies as hard as he can. That's kind of what he lusts for in combat, so that really does make him be fitting of the Smasher class just as much as the Brawler class. For Slam Bam, I would say he's one of the only Skylanders that is truly 50-50. But now we move on to the last two characters, which are both brawlers at heart, but Big Bubble Pop Fizz would make a good bazooka as well, because his little trumpet right here is a singular weapon which is pretty giant, and it launches projectiles, and of course he has several different projectiles that he can launch out of this bazooka based weapon, which makes him quite the weapons master. So that's definitely for traits of a bazooka, but that's only 50% of his gameplay. The other 50% is of course him in his beast mode as he brawls with his enemies. And then we move on to the last character to talk about for this video, Riptide. Now, he would also make a perfect knight just as much as a brawler, because he has a swordfish as a weapon. Swordfish. What kind of weaponry do knights use? Well, swords. So weaponry is pretty fitting, but then there's also the aesthetics of Riptide. If I bring him up closer, you can see that he wears golden armor, and that once again is an aesthetic of a knight, since knights are traditionally known for wearing of their armor. So Riptide does fit into a knight aesthetically, I suppose, but his gameplay is so tailored towards being a brawler, which is why he was put into that class in the end. But I had such a clash with him as to which battle class to put him in at the end. But yeah, that basically does it for this here video, discussing about the dual classes that all of these Skylanders are kind of classed as, you could say. And I sure hope you enjoyed this concept. If you did, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe for future episodes of Schooled. But until such a moment, peace.